Did you know that the Great Wall of China began to be built in the 3rd century BC? And the reason? To protect the Chinese Empire from invasions. That's right. While people here in the West were still discovering the revolutionary idea of taking a bath every now and then, the Chinese were already thinking, let's build a little wall to keep the annoying neighbors out of the backyard. Picture the scene. The 3rd century BC, China wasn't even China yet. It was like a condo full of kingdoms, each with its own fence and a king who thought he was the building manager of the universe. To make matters worse, in the north lived the nomadic peoples, such as the Xiongnu, who were the terror of the neighborhood. They would arrive, plunder everything, and disappear into the horizon. The ancient equivalent of a Venmo scam, but with horses and spears. That's when Qin Shi Huang appeared. The guy who looked at all that chaos and thought, I've had enough. Now everyone's going to play together, but in my empire. And that's how he became the first emperor of China. The man was visionary, determined, and completely paranoid. If he lived today, he'd be that neighbor who installs cameras even inside the microwave. And his solution to protect the empire? Let's connect all the old walls and make one gigantic one. And that's how the idea of the Great Wall was born. Now, construction is a very polite word for what actually happened. The recruitment went something like, who's available to work until they die hauling stones? Everyone? Great! Peasants, prisoners, and defeated soldiers were forced to work. Over 400,000 people under the blazing sun with no machinery and no labor rights. And if someone died of exhaustion, guess what? They became part of the wall. Literally. There are records that the bodies were buried within the structure. It was the full package: forced labor, sweat, and human cement. And the size of this little project? Over 20,000 kilometers. That's like building a wall from New York to Los Angeles and still having enough left over to circle around Texas. And all of that without GPS. But despite its massive size, the wall wasn't continuous. It had gaps, weaknesses, and sections that crumbled. And the invaders? Sometimes they just went around it. Like, oh look, a wall. Let's just walk a few kilometers to the side and go in over there. Strategy? 10-10. But it wasn't all a disaster. The wall had watchtowers and a smoke signal system that worked like the iMessage of war. They would light a fire here, another would respond over there, and the army would know where the problem was coming from. A simple, efficient form of communication, and best of all, no 3-minute voice messages. Qin Shi Huang, of course, used the wall as a billboard for his own ego. Look at the size of my wall. No one's invading me. In addition to building the wall, he ordered books to be burned and scholars to be buried alive, to eliminate those who could read. His dynasty, however, didn't last long. The people got tired of all the forced labor and basically rage quit the empire. But the idea of the wall caught on. The following dynasties, like the Han, Sui, and Ming, all wanted to give the project a makeover. It was like a new government repainting the curbs just to show they're doing something. The Han dynasty, for example, used the wall system to control trade along the famous Silk Road. The wall became a millennia-old toll booth. Want a pass? Show your passport and pay the tax. And that's where things get interesting. The wall wasn't just for defense. It also served as a point of cultural control. Through it passed merchants, philosophers, adventurers, and all kinds of international gossip. The Silk Road was the TikTok of the 2nd century BC, full of influencers selling exotic goods and spreading trends. Over the centuries, the wall went through ups and downs, literally. Some parts collapsed, others were rebuilt. It was only during the Ming dynasty, in the 14th century, that it got the look we know today. Reinforced towers, bricks, and a design worthy of Game of Thrones. Just with fewer dragons and more bureaucracy. And guess what? Even then, it didn't really work. The Mongols, the Manchus, everyone still found a way to invade. In the 17th century, the Manchus simply found an open passage, and that was it. The end of the Ming dynasty and the beginning of the Qing dynasty. Moral of the story: no matter how big your wall is, there's always someone who figures out the Wi-Fi password. Pause for reflection. Think about the insanity of it. Centuries of labor, millions of bricks, thousands of lives lost. And in the end, the wall failed in its military purpose. But it became one of humanity's greatest symbols. Like that super expensive project that doesn't really work, but looks amazing on display. The Great Wall is exactly that, an epic failure that became a World Heritage treasure. It represents both the strength of the Chinese people and humanity's fear and desire to isolate itself. Because deep down, every wall is built to keep someone out. And 2,000 years later, we're still doing the same thing. Only now with digital, political, and emotional walls. And of course, there couldn't be a story like this without a tragic legend. They say that a woman named Meng Jiangnu cried so much over the death of her husband, one of the wall's laborers, that her tears brought down a section of the structure. Poetic, tragic, and totally worthy of a prime-time soap opera. Moral of the story? Never underestimate a woman angry at government decisions. Over time, the wall lost its military relevance. Gunpowder and cannons came along, and the wall became just a gigantic monument. Today, it's a tourist spot that receives millions of visitors each year, with people taking selfies, drones flying overhead, and that one uncle who climbs 2 flights of stairs and says, "This is a good spot for the photo." And that story about being able to see the wall from space? Total fake news. Astronauts have confirmed it. It's too narrow and blends in with the landscape. But let's be honest, a structure so huge you can see it from space sounds way better in a textbook, doesn't it? And Qin Shi Huang, the mastermind behind this madness, died trying to find the elixir of immortality. Ironically, he was poisoned by mercury potions. The guy wanted to live forever and ended up becoming a history statue. Literally, since he ordered an entire army of terracotta soldiers to protect him after death. And the most curious part? The Great Wall isn't a single wall. It's actually several sections spread out, made of stone, earth, and even sticky rice. Yes? Rice. The secret to its 1,000-year durability is carbohydrates. China literally cemented its future with food. In the end, the Great Wall is a mix of glory, tragedy, and irony, a testament to human ingenuity and stubbornness. If Qin Shi Huang could see all this today, he'd probably say, "I knew it would work out, we just needed Wi-Fi." And to you who made it this far, congratulations, you've just crossed the Great Wall of history without having to climb a single step. Now drop a comment. Which other historical monument do you think would turn into a full-on Mexican soap opera if the real story were told? And of course, subscribe to the channel. We promise to keep debunking historical myths with our signature blend of delicacy and sarcasm. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.